helping you find your new way forward to the best years of your life. This is a New Way Forward podcast with your host, Paul Long.
So many people never change or transform their lives despite the desperate need to, because it's hard, it's scary, I don't know what to do. Well, in this video, I share with you from 15 years of experience of changing my own life, what to do, how to get started, to not make it so hard, to not make it so scary, and not make it more challenging. But the main thing is to launch yourself in the beginning in a doable way that gets you going in the right direction. Now, I said 15 years. It's not going to take you 15 years. But I didn't have this kind of video 15 years ago to help me sort it out. So this isn't what I did, which is the number one question I get from people. Paul, how did you do it? How did you change your life to something that you now say is remarkable and ideal for you? I'm instead going to share what I would have done if I had known then what I know now. So I have 5 steps that, number one, when I say doable, I mean, these are things that we can all handle, that we can integrate into our daily lives, that kind of take away some of the challenge and certainly not knowing what to do. But it's also not just the typical thing of, like when you need another job or you want to change a career. Okay, well, let's make a list of what I'm good at, and let's make a list of what my skills are, and some things that I want and some things that I don't want. By the way, that's fine to a degree, but the problem is, if you're wanting a change, it's the same old thinking that you're applying to that got you into your current situation. So this is all about, what are my true thoughts and beliefs and needs and desires? How do I really figure that out so that I start and find the right direction from the beginning? And then last but not least is a method by which it's not only doable, but you immediately start getting gratification. You're immediately motivated to do this and to keep doing it and to put in the time and effort, because not only do you want it, you're starting to see it. You're starting to get excited about it. This is what I learned. This is what so many people have learned, because the moment I started thinking about this, the moment I started opening up my eyes, the moment I started challenging some of my old assumptions and beliefs and started thinking of the new possibilities and such, I got really excited. And that's driven me, because I saw the potential for it, even though I had to put in the work. And 15 years, well, you're not going to have to do 15 years. I'm going to share a piece of perspective before we get into the 5, and also one other way to help you get past the hurdle of how hard this may seem to do. And it's something that's really worked for me, and that is I choose my hard. Here's how that works. There are 2 kinds of hard. There is, the fact that if I want to improve my health and start working out and change my diet and get in good shape, that's hard. If I'm in financial trouble and my finances are a mess, cleaning them up and getting myself solvent is hard. Changing my life, transforming and pivoting to something that is ideal for me, that's hard. But it's also hard to not get in good health and suffer sickness and consequences of being in bad health. It's also hard to live with bad finances and all those challenges and stresses. And it's also hard to keep living a life that's not right for me, and the drip, drip, drip daily water torture or misery. And in all 3 cases, hating myself for not doing anything about it. So actually, not doing something about it is harder. And then the other thing about the hard of making that improvement is that you're investing time, you're investing effort and emotion and energy into something you will get a return on your investment for. So choose your hard. It gets pretty obvious and simple for me. Here's the second thing I want to share before I get into the 5. And that is really a life perspective, a new life perspective to take into account. I don't care if you're 27 or 57 or 67. And that is the longevity revolution. It is a gift of life that has never existed on this earth before. And that is, simply put, not just the ability to live longer with a longer lifespan, more importantly, a longer health span. Living far beyond the age many people would assume, and being physically fit and active and independent and relevant and doing your thing. The old life map was youth. You learned as an adult, you worked, you maybe had a family. Then you started to decline, you retired, and you died. Now, look at it this way. In our youth, we learn, we absorb everything, we're figuring out life. As an adult, it's like an apprenticeship in which we're applying what we've learned, finding out what works, what doesn't, and such. And then at some point when we get older, whatever that means, 40, 50, 60 and above, we know more about ourselves, we know more about life and more about the world, in which to say, okay, wait a minute. Now I really can take on, what do I want for my life? So the older you get, quite frankly, the better timing it is, but that doesn't mean, as a self-aware person, you can't do it when you're 33. And in fact, I've shared this with people in their 30s, where I've said, screw retirement. People are retiring and they're miserable. They're happy for about a year, and then alcoholism, drug abuse, divorce, depression, kick into gear because people have lost their relevance. They've lost their self-identity. They've lost their purpose. And, if you're 65 years old, you could have 30 years of healthy life ahead of you. 30 years ago, you were 35 years old. Think how much life you had. On and on and on. When I share this with 30-somethings who are having a great life, I get these stunned reactions of, my gosh, this changes the way I look at my life right now. And this opens up the world of possibilities to me on the things that I can do in my life, including when I want to go pro, when I reach that point. So I say, yeah, it's not just saying, oh, well, instead of retiring, you can pivot to something great. That may happen a month from now, or 5 or 10 years from now. So keep in mind that there's new life phase. Stanford University brought in hundreds of people from all sectors of business and society and medicine and so on and so forth. And they came up with a new life map to take this into account. So this is a whole new opportunity for you, no matter what your age is now. So with all that said, now let's get into the 5 steps that will help you get going, keep going, and going in the right direction. Number 1, take baby steps. Yeah, that's right. Just take baby steps when you start. What is one thing, one even little thing you can do today to start advancing you in your new direction? And I'll be sharing what some of those ideas are. And also, if you go, whether it's to my website, newwayfwd.com, or follow me on Substack, New Way Forward on Substack, or here on YouTube or social media, I'm always putting out ideas and perspectives and the new realities and the new possibilities out there. But I think you can get going on your own in terms of thinking, what is one little thing I can do today to think about, to consider, to question? For instance, what is it that I really want? And as I'll explain in a moment, why do I want that? What is one little healthy thing I could do for myself? I turned my health totally around by taking 10,000 baby steps. Every morning, I think, what's one healthy thing I could do today? It might have been, I'm not going to have any meat at dinner, and I'm just going to load up on the vegetables. Or I'm going to take a 20-minute brisk walk. I'm going to talk to myself so I can see if my breath is a little challenged, which is the rate that you want to get. On and on and on and on. Well, here's what happened to me with that. With the health thing, this is what's going to happen to you when you take this on, is that, like a baby, you're going to take those first little tentative steps. And then You're going to take more steps. And then before you know it, what are you doing? You're running and you're jumping. What I found with both finding my new way forward and improving my health is that I very quickly went to 5 baby steps a day. And then I went to 5 strides a day, because you get into it. You, first of all, discover, oh, I can do this. Oh, I'm making progress. But the big thing is, and this transcends everything, is the motivation to do it. Because when I started seeing the effects of my improvement on my health, using that example, and when I started feeling good about myself for doing it, and when I started thinking, hey, this is easy, and it started to become a habit, all of a sudden I'm like, I really want to look into supplements. Oh, I really want to look into, what is the difference between aerobic and resistance training, and what should I do, and on and on and on and on. I started following people, and I'd see, them saying, you want to avoid dementia. It's all about inflammation, and, resistance training is a huge part of that. Oh, I've got to integrate that. You get into it. You want it. You're aligned with it. And it's the same thing in figuring out, what do you really want in your life? And as I'm going to get to in a moment, it's getting down to the real basics and identifying what you really want, and also getting past some of the old thinking that you have now, which, let's go ahead, leads us to number 2. What's your why? When we think about changing our life, we often think about the what and the how, as I've described before, but not the why. The why is where it all starts. Why do you want to change? Why do you not like your life? Why do you not like your job? Well, I don't like it because of blah, blah, blah. Well, why blah, blah, blah? What is it, okay, about blah, blah, blah? Well, it's this. Here's what happens. When you start asking your why do I want this? Why do I not want this? You sometimes have to ask it 10 times or 15 times. You're peeling the onion, getting down to the essential things that are important for you in your life. For instance, when I started out on this, I had a very successful career going, even though I got brutalized in the recession. It was a depression for me. I was very successful with it. I was keeping the lights on, and I continued it for a while to put boys through college. But it's like, why am I not fulfilled in this job or this career that I'm succeeding at? Why? Well, what else would you like? Well, I'd like something that's like this, or I'd like this in my life. Well, why? And I just deconstruct it. So whether you're literally asking the question why, you're allowed to say what and how. You're really getting down to the basic point that you really need to get down to find out who you really are, what you really want, so that you can find something that's really aligned with you, so that you're not dealing with old beliefs and old thinking. So I got to talk about beliefs here for just a moment. Here's a why. Why have I not succeeded as well as I can? Why is it that I can't seem to get what I want? Why is it that I can't hold on to money? Why? Our beliefs. Because I'll throw this out there, that virtually every human being that has ever walked this planet has gone to their grave with a limited life because of limiting beliefs, and beliefs that in reality were not true. Here's what I'm talking about. This affects all of us. It affects me. It affects everyone that I know, even successful people. So, by definition, a belief is something you believe to be true, even if it's not. And where we all run into these self-limiting beliefs very often comes from childhood, not exclusively, but very often it's the way our parents were, it's the environment that we grew up in, it's things that our parents said to us or treated us. Sometimes it's one time, sometimes it's continuous. So a very common self-limiting belief is, I'm not good enough. And, that can come from a parent saying, you come home, look, I got a B+ on my test. Well, if you'd studied harder, you could have gotten an A+. Or you'll never amount to anything, or you're not responsible, or you can't hold on to money, or you're not pretty or handsome enough, whatever. because we're kids, we are just like a sponge bringing all this life knowledge in, and we take it empirically, and that stays with us. I found I had a self-limiting belief. I know that something was holding me back, whether when I was in the TV news business or doing all these award-winning videos and shows and things of that sort for major global corporations, there was still something holding me back. And I won't go into it because it'll take a while. With me, it was a little bit more subtle, but I discovered what it was. It was this belief that was formed when I was in elementary school, and it's held me back in my adulthood. But here's the thing. When you identify, well, yeah, what is that self-limiting belief? You've done 80% of the job by identifying it. And then when you rationally think to yourself, is that true? Or was that my mother's issue? Or my father's issue? Or whatever? Yeah, it was their issue. It may still take you a while to get over the hump, and maybe you won't even get completely over the hump, but you are much, much better with it, as is the case for me now. Because here is why this is so important in our lives, daily or in macro terms. There's a basic true formula, like physics. Our beliefs drive our emotions. Our emotions drive our decisions. Our decisions drive our actions. And our actions equal your life right now. So my beliefs about me maybe not being quite worthy or whatever the heck it was limited me. I had that limiting belief, and so therefore I would make a decision based on that emotion that's tied to the belief, and then that would lead to an action, and then I self-validated it. Well, yeah, I got the results that limiting belief had. When I changed it, then I had better emotions, leading me to better decisions, leading me to better actions, leading me to my new way forward. One more thing about your why. Use it as a motivational tool. I know that when I walk in this office sometimes, as I said before, I really don't want to do this. When I consider, well, why am I doing this? That helps me. It helps me in the first place. Well, why I'm doing it is I need to get it done. I want to get it off my plate. Fine, I'll take that. But it's also like why I'm doing this is the bigger picture thing. This is a part of making my transformation and living the life that I want. And these are the things that I have to do about it. So I find it to be a great motivating tool. Then I also have a Jedi mind trick, which is also that I know that once I sit down and just get started, it'll all be fine. So now, with those two steps that I've given you, doable baby steps and exploring your why, I want to say that once you start doing these things, you're going to start thinking about stuff. You're going to start wondering, oh, what about this? Or this might be interesting. The whole point of this is that you're getting momentum. You're getting excited. It's both a relief and exciting to get rid of some of the old crap that you've been thinking or doing or you having rote thinking about. You know, they say that tens of thousands of thoughts, most of the thoughts that we have every day are the same thoughts. They're the same reactions. You're changing that. And that's really cool. And it's really exciting. And it's going to get you thinking about stuff. Ooh, yeah, hey, Paul, I'm not doing this other stuff yet, but I'm kind of excited about this thought. Go for it. Check it out. Start thinking about it. Put it on your list. Do whatever. To further refine it, write a thank you note from your 95-year-old self to your current self. Here's what I mean about that. I mean, certainly, I had been thinking about writing on Substack or doing a video here on YouTube on maybe writing the obit for yourself now and then writing an obit for what you'd wanted to say. Oh, that's okay. And then you hear this thing, writing a note to your younger self. And I'm just like, it's not cutting it. And then it hit me. And I've done this and it's worked so well. And I've talked to other people who've got amazing results on it. So writing a thank you note by hand, by the way, because it slows down your brain and it helps you remember stuff better. It's more worthwhile. Do it by hand. Pretend like you're 95 years old, or pick whatever age you want. And you're writing a note to thank your current self for everything you're doing now, for taking the initiative, and for doing the things that you're going to do to leave you at age 95 with this phenomenal life that you've had in the interim. What this does is it helps you identify the fundamental basic things that you want your life to be like, not just when you're 95, but it's the reflection of the 95-year-old saying, thank you for doing this and this and this and this, because this is the kind of life that I've had that's been, amazing for me and us. So I've done it, Dear Paul, me, us, thank you. Here I am at 95, still healthy and active, still living a purpose-driven and relevant life that I am passionate about. Thank you for the decisions, efforts, and determination you made decades ago, meaning today, to not settle and instead transform us and our lives into something amazing. So then I go into more detail about some of the very fundamental basic things. I wish I could put in stock tips from my 95-year-old or who won the 2047, Super Bowl. But that really helped me kind of put my head around the very fundamental basic things that I wanted in my life that then again become the launch pad that's got the rocket pointed in the right direction that I need when I'm not sure what direction that is yet. It becomes a litmus test for everything that I think about. Well, yeah, I could do that, but that doesn't fit what my aspirations are in a fundamental sense. By the way, this career that I had after television news of doing all of this amazing content, great opportunities, wonderful people that I worked with, I never should have done it. I made a decision when I was thinking about leaving news of, well, what am I going to do? And I'm like, oh, I could do that. And I did. And I succeeded. And it was never right for me. I was never comfortable doing it. And while I certainly did get some fulfillment from my successes and such, if I could go back, I would not have done this because I didn't do this. I didn't think, what do I really want holistically in my life? When I'm talking holistically, I'm saying check out Ikigai, the intersection of profession and talent and life and health and community and such. I failed on that. I wish I had done something like this, because this got me to a very fundamental place as to what the fundamentals were for my life, and then the details follow that. Which leads us to number 4, the power of intention. It works, you've used it, you've succeeded with it. We all have. I had, but I didn't realize it. Then one morning, sitting right over here, I was in the first place in a terrible spot. I had come out of a very toxic, and I mean like Kim thought I was going to die, toxic business relationship with a former friend and partner. And I was kind of lost. And I'm trying to pull myself out of that hole. And by the way, that was a brutal business too, in and of itself. And I'm sitting here actually working on trying to get Paul On Productions relaunched again, and it's Saturday morning. I'm one of those people who like to have the TV on in the background. I put on PBS, it was Pledge Week, Wayne Dyer, who I knew who he was. I hadn't read or really followed any of his stuff. He was talking about something, and I'm not even paying attention, and he said something that just was this epiphany for me. I mean, billions of things I've experienced in life lined up. And what he was talking about, and I wish I could remember exactly what he said. I've rewatched that like twice looking for it, and I can't find it. But anyway, not important. What it was the power of intention. That basically, whatever you put out, whatever you believe, you get back. Period. So if you don't believe you'll amount to anything, if you don't believe that you can make enough money, or if you even think I need more money, which is negative in and of itself, you're going to get that back. But when you believe and you even use the language, I'm like a computer input. If you put into a computer, I need more money, it's going to keep you needing more money. If you put in there, I'm attached to more money, blah, 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 that's what you're going to get back. And I realized throughout my life, I had used the power of intention, although not all that effectively and without knowing it. And I had used it to get out of that toxic situation. Every single day when I was getting on the freeway, I don't know whether it was a prayer or a call to the universe or something, where I was like, somehow I am going to get out of this, and it's not going to be like falling off a cliff. It's going to be like stepping off a curb and there isn't a bus coming. I'm going to step off of this, I'm going to recover, and I'm going to move forward. I was just doing that. And that's exactly what happened. So then I started learning more about it and how it works, and how to, in other words, paint that picture in your mind of what it is you not want, not need, but intend to have, the belief that you're connected with it. If you think I'm getting woo-woo about this, in a moment I'm going to talk about the neurological science and factors that make this happen. Now, is there a metaphysical, spiritual component? Is it like prayer? Is it God? Is it the universe being aligned with, or Ra, or whomever? I don't know. I think there might be. But before I get into the neurological factor of it, and therefore kind of how to do it, not kind of how to do it, how to do it. Let me share this with you. In everything that I try to learn and such, and obviously doing this as well as other things, I dig pretty deep. When I'm hearing and learning about people throughout history and in different civilizations saying and preaching and putting forth the same thing, even though they're disconnected by distance or eras, but they're all saying the same thing, I believe there's something really to that. And in fact, I also believe the ancients are probably a lot closer to the truth of existence than we are with all of our modern day distractions, be that as it may. When it comes to the power of intention, by whatever means that it works, let me share what a few people you may have heard of have said about it in the past, such as Jesus, who said in Mark 11:24, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Or the Buddha, "Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think." Here's a really great one. Follow me on this. This comes from a classic Vedic Hindu text that's over 3,000 years old and still adhered to and applied today. "You are what your deepest desire is. As your desire is, so is your intention. As your intention is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny." That's over 3,000 years old and still being put forth today by a multitude of thought leaders and spiritual leaders. And just as an interesting one, because I thought this was very interesting, Carlos Castaneda, if anybody knows about him, he lived with Native Americans who were still much very aligned to their ancient ways and got great insights. And as he wrote in one of his books, "In the universe, there is an immeasurable, indescribable force which shamans call intent. And absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link." So anything you've ever done in your life, including getting up to go get a cup of coffee, is based on an intention. The key is working it to the full glory of its potential in a very smart way, which takes us to how we're smart and how our brain works. So every memory, every action, everything we've learned makes a neural pathway. So I'm not going to get too physiologically or neurologically technical on you here, but I ran this simple definition by, a couple of neuropsychologists and scientists, and they said it's accurate. Okay, so we have these neural pathways in our brain, everything that we've ever learned, right? Well, our brain is constantly in the different parts of it filled with ideas and thoughts and reactions and things to do. And so we need an Intel processor in our brain, not unlike our computers. An Intel processor, which is our prefrontal cortex. It processes all that stuff in your brain and narrows it down to what you really need to know at that moment in order to, well, initially survive, but also how to thrive, how to pursue, how to achieve. And that's done with this thing in your prefrontal cortex called the reticular activating system. So it works like this. First of all, in primeval times, you're standing there with a spear and a huge savanna of grass in front of you, this vast plain, and you're just kind of looking out there. But all of a sudden, why is that grass not moving quite right with the wind? Is that dinner? Or is that a saber-toothed tiger attacking me? How is it your brain picked that out? In modern times, how is it you can do this and so, I want to see that? Or a newspaper. How do you sort through that stuff? Or you want to buy a yellow Mustang, and all of a sudden you start seeing yellow Mustangs. That's because your primary active neural pathways, of which you have trillions of them, and you continue to make them every time you learn something, they're very prominent, and the reticular activating system saying, hey, this is what I've got to pay attention to for the survival of this person, which also includes what your aspirations are, not just dodging saber-toothed tigers. So when you set an intention, so let's say you're coming to this point where you've determined what you want in life, and you start meditating, daydreaming, fantasizing while you're driving, in the shower, sitting at your chair. What's this going to look like? What's this going to smell like, taste like, sound like? And most importantly, what is it going to feel like emotionally? I mean, have you ever daydreamed about something and you could feel your emotions get stoked by the excitement of it, whatever it may be? That is critical because that is making those neural pathways hyperactive. You may have even heard sometimes people say, sometimes the brain can't tell the difference between what you've imagined and what really has happened. Bingo. That's what this is talking about. So you're making that vision and the feelings of it so real in your brain that your reticular activating system is working with you. It's sitting there connecting the dots, observing things, hearing somebody say something that doesn't even have anything to do with it, yet it clicks some idea. Where do you think these things come from? From doing this. The other point about it is you have to believe that it's going to work, and it will work. Okay, now if I wanted to have an intention in which I'm going to play middle linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys, no, but you know what? That's not real, and that's not aligned with who I am and what I want. But I put in the time and effort to envision what it is and what it's going to feel like, and it works. So it works in terms of your brain, and if you want to add to it, and why not, who knows, there's even a spiritual universal connection to it. I'll take everything I can. Because I love something else that Wayne Dyer guy said, is that when you set an intention and when you're aligned with it and you're thinking about it and pursuing it, the universe, and I'll add your brain, conspires with you to make it happen. One last thing, and a good thing to do at this first point, is that when I was in the early throes of figuring out my new way forward and power of intention, I said, I need to set a basic intention, but how do I set an intention for something I don't know what it is yet? Well, going back to that basic set of my whys and trying to go as far down as I could, I thought, how do I want to feel every morning when I wake up in my near and long-term future? How can I boil it down to its essence? So here's what I came up with. Every morning, I want to, wake up. Pretty basic, pretty fundamental, but pretty important too. Okay, number 2, I feel great. Physically, my health, I don't have any problems. I'm not on any medications. I'm feeling wonderful. If I'm feeling any aches and pains, it's because, I cut a bunch of timber yesterday. I played racquetball for 2 hours as I did a couple of days ago, whatever. Next, I just love my life and what I'm doing right now. I am just so grateful for the way my life is, what I'm doing, how I'm being active, and how I'm living it. The next one was, I'm excited about today. Whatever it is I'm doing, I'm excited about doing it. And last but not least, I don't need to worry about money at all. I don't need a villa in the Swiss Alps, but I'd like to afford to rent one if I had to. Point is I'm putting all my energy into my life, not about worrying about money. So that was my first intention, just to get me started. I got super basic on it. And by the way, I'll say I've got 5 of the 6 right now. And those 5 are continuing to improve. The one is the money, but I know I'm going to get there because I know it's there for you. Think of your intention as being like a package from Amazon, or that big gift that's wrapped for your birthday, but it's not your birthday yet. You're connected to it. It's there. You just haven't opened it yet. All right. Last but not least, in order to change. As humans, we are habitual animals. It is said that our minds are, from our evolution over the last 200,000 years as Homo sapiens. Quite frankly, you can go back to our precursors of that. Are wired as a defensive mechanism to resist change. We want what's familiar, what we know is safe. How do you overcome that? Well, I mentioned a moment ago, for instance, we have the same thinking every day. We have the same reactions. We have the same thoughts. We have the same habits. You have the same alarm that goes off. You get out your phone, you scroll, and you look at what other people are doing, or you look at the news and get all upset. You have your coffee, doing this, you do that, boom, 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 boom. Same old routine, and throughout the day. But if you start changing your routines, even in little ways, you brush your teeth with your right hand, tonight brush it with your left. It could be that simple, although you could do better than that. But just starting to change stuff up kind of makes your brain a little more malleable, and you start handling change and being comfortable with change both consciously and subconsciously. So let's go back to the morning. The thing that really changed my life for the better was having a healthy morning routine. Instead of that blaring alarm going off, instead of immediately looking at the news or other people's lives or whatever, I have an hour to 2 hours every morning focused on myself. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I love it. You knew me a few years ago, you'd never expect that. I love that time for myself in which I get up, I have some coffee, I hydrate myself. Man, I gotta tell you, I drink 12 ounces or more of water in the morning. I can feel my brain explode. I journal. It's my time to put my thoughts, my fears, and my concerns. And by doing it by hand, even if I never go back and reread it, it really helps me kind of sort things out. And I got another technique for you for that in just a moment. Then I meditate. Yeah, you go on YouTube and there are thousands of different types of meditations. Guided meditations, you want to get over fear, you want to do whatever, or you want to focus on an intention, you can find a guided meditation with the voice and music that you like. Or I listen to tropical rainforest sounds, and sometimes it's just clearing my head, it's just concentrating on my breathing, feeling my tips of my fingers or whatever, and just study after study, quantifiable, peer-reviewed study shows that kind of meditation where you're never going to get rid of thoughts. Thoughts are going to come in. I heard a Buddhist who was like 87 years old saying, of course thoughts drift into my meditation. I just go, oh, there's a thought. Get rid of it. Get back to it. It's super healthy, super great for cognition and your well-being and your emotions. But you can also have these guided meditations for you to focus, for instance, on your intention. And sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes. And I love it. I notice the difference in it. And no, you don't have to have incense or little finger symbols or, some Buddha belly to rub. But if you want to, please feel free. The other thing is I do yoga. Really, to be honest with you, it's just a bunch of stretches using yoga positions that I learned years ago from Rodney Yee's morning yoga. And I incorporate those moves. But here's the other cool thing. This is my one time for electronics in the morning, is that doing it down here on the floor, do it here in my office, my home office. I'm listening to YouTube or to podcasts. I'm listening to experts and others, thought leaders on business, changing your life, health, exercise, spirituality, whatever your topic is. I'm not looking for entertainment or TV shows or comedians. I stay the hell away from politics. But those things that I'm interested in developing, those things I'm sharing with you right now, thousands and thousands of hours, by just listening to them for about 15 minutes of doing some yoga. And then I am ready for the day. The day, my morning routine was all about me and launching myself in a good, healthy direction. And I was also changing my old habits for something better. I highly recommend it. The journaling I already mentioned, with the power of intention, over here I have a vision board. I've got images, some of them literal, some of them evocative of the very things that I'm putting my intention on that I want. I look at those regularly, and you can read or listen to Dr. Tara Swart-Biber, who wrote The Source, who's a neuroscientist and a neurophysician. And she talks about why a vision board, putting imagery up that represents what you're intending to have or achieve or do, helps your brain, helps your reticular activating system and prefrontal cortex do their job. And then to wrap up the day, I take 15 minutes-ish where I close the door, turn off notifications and phones and any electronics, and I review the day and have a conversation with myself. So it might not be even specifically about what I did, but it's just what's on my mind. And I literally have a conversation with myself. If anybody walks by, they can think you're on the phone. But the point of it is, by having that conversation with yourself, for one thing, you get out of your pinball game brain where thoughts are jumping around all over the place. And you're kind of saying, God, I feel stuck on this, or, I think I got this right, but I'm not sure I'm right, or, oh boy, I really handled that well. I wish I could remember that. You have that conversation, and you're just keeping yourself very self-aware of what you're doing and what you need to do. So there you go. Those are 5 very, very doable steps. I know I've been going on and on for quite a while, but they're 5 very doable steps. In the first place, it's doable. You just get started. You just start doing those baby steps in whatever ways, whatever comes to your mind, with the intention that you're going to transform your life into something you may not even be able to imagine now, which personally I find exciting. Then number 2 is that you start working on your why. Well, why do I feel this way? Why did I do this? Why do I not like this? Why? You're going deeper. Most people just deal with the what and the how. Have your why, and the what and how will follow. Then write that letter to your 95-year-old self, or anything else like that that you think will be helpful for you, and be prepared to rewrite it. Be prepared to reread it. Then focus your intention, and if you don't know what it is that you want yet, so some of this sharing with you the power of intention is for you to use later. But if you don't know what it is, start thinking as fundamental and basic as you possibly can. And then start changing things. These are doable steps. In no time at all, you'll have the motivation. You'll have the progress. You'll have the excitement. You'll start seeing and feeling the possibilities, so that You can change your life to not just something else or different, but something that's right for you. It's there for every single one of us. And we only have one pass at this time on earth.
You've been listening to A New Way Forward vodcast with your host, Paul Long.